Kia ora, everybody. Kia ora. Wada ndaganeram kalamara. Kala yenga nama Shaun Angeles Penangke. Yang Yerrampe. Ipmana chinagan Apmere yanikor. Kwatye-kenhe ngani jap Apmere yanal. Merlengan durukon anjal pejeka. Arrernte ngechik. My name's Shaun Penangke. I'm from Australia, right in the middle, Mpopola, right in the middle of Australia. A place called Ayampe. That's my grandmother's country. And my grandmother's people are the Rainmakers of the desert. We got a connection with the rain spirit. And hey, bro. We're the Rainmakers. So my family are important people, in the desert. We don't get much rain there. So when olden times, when we couldn't turn taps on and get water at will, whenever we wanted to, all the surrounding tribes would come to my people and say, all our water holes are drying up, all our rock holes are drying up, you need to dance and sing for Kwatye. Kwatye means rain. So that's where I'm from. Long way I come. Beautiful country though, really beautiful. Thank you for inviting me. Arrernte, that's my mother's mother. This is where I grew up. Mpopol, right in the middle. My father's from up here, Kungarakany people. A little bit inland from the salt water, but we had really close connections with saltwater people. My mother's father is from Wanyi people up here. My mother's father is from the Yerrampe people. My father's mother is from Kurinji. So lots of tribes in here, lots. And then mixed with Irish and Chinese and other bloodlines. Like the tangata whenua of this land, my people too are very spiritual people. We are physical manifestations of our ancestral spirits. Our entire essence walks in spirit. So when we mix the spiritual with the digital, it's inevitable that there will be a dichotomy of sorts, because the spirit will always be looking at the digital and thinking, how can we be friends? How can we make this work? Our spirits want to work with technology, but only on the condition that it upholds the integrity of spirit. This is the conflict that my work involves at the Strehlow Research Centre in Mparntwe, Alice Springs, on a daily basis. Is it all right if we just talk a little bit language? Well, I'll use a few language terms in here, but Aljera, Aljera, yeah. That's creation, time of creation. Pakeha, white men call them dream time, but that's fluffy and meaningless. We don't know what that means. Aljera. Aknganinja. Aknganinja. That means where a place where the spirit emerges from the earth, from Mirala. Or it means the site where somebody is conceived. Apmere. Apmere, that's kind of like a tangata whenua, a division of tangata whenua. It's a patriline owners of country, a patrilineal connection, father to son, father to son. Then we have a matriline connection called Kodangola. Kodangola, yeah. Hey, you must say it better than most Australians. True. Doesn't surprise me though. Aljara, the time of creation. My people know that before Aljara, the earth was dark, empty and featureless with no human life, trees, mountains, rivers. We know this because our ancient stories and lore tell us this. This is our reference point, our truth. Not myth, this is our truth, Raj. During the creation of life, our ancestors emerged from the earth itself and began their feats of creation. Different ancestors and beings descended upon the earth from the stars, the universe, and also created life in our lands. Our ancestors took the form of animals, plants, and elements, but they could shift their form to human being at will. This is a time that white man refers to as the dreaming, but we know it as Aljara. Our lands were created by their journeys where they travelled vast distances performing ceremonies, singing and dancing, birthing the land itself and also us, their descendants. They left their essence, their life sport, their life force, their spirit, or watnanga, in all of our places of deep reverence, our sacred places. We know of a deep concept that we call Ngāninja, which loosely translates as the site that has the physical signs of ancestors from the Aljara, including the places where they came into existence. Ngāninja also means the site where someone is conceived, because it refers to a particular ancestor from the Aljara where it enters the mother's body. You see, we believe in reincarnation and that we are the direct incarnates of our ancestors who created the earth. That's really important in our worldview, our culture, our belief, our truth. Therefore, we know that after the act of procreation, there is a magical occurrence of where the spirit of the land enters a mother and gives the unborn child the spark of life, or its otnanga, its soul, its spirit. When a mother first feels her child or dreams her child, she would tell her elders, who would then ask her where she was in the landscape when she first experienced this knowing of child. The elders would then discuss things and know exactly the spirit or ancestor of that area or place where she felt this, and they would disclose the spiritual identity of this child. If the mother was in a place associated with the ara or the kangaroo, the child would then be looked upon as the incarnate of that totem, of that spirit, of that energy. If it were in the lands of the Unjiamba, the child would be the incarnate of the honeysuckle flower, an important resource that provides us with sweet honey in the summer. Or if it were in the area where the Kwatye-kenhe ancestors, the rain ancestors, created the land, the child would be the incarnate of water or rain. Now this meant a few key things. Firstly, it meant the elders knew the identity of the child before it was born because they knew of the personality and character of that specific Aljara ancestor. It also meant that the child throughout its life would be instructed on all the ceremonies, songs and dances of his or her creator spirit. And by doing this, would learn about his or herself and the journeys and feats that they undertook in the Aljara, in the creation. But most importantly, it meant that they had to learn the deep knowledge of the site of their conception, or their Ngāninja, and do everything in their means to care for it, maintain it, clean it both physically and spiritually, and protect it from any damage. Because if their Ngāninja site or their conception site was damaged, this meant that their spirit was affected significantly. This is such a beautiful knowing of how the spirit and physical bodies are intrinsically connected and reliant upon each other. It's a beautiful knowledge of the earth and how we're all connected and dependent upon it. This is why, more so in pre-colonisation times, we cared for our country because we knew that everything comes from the land, even us. This is what this picture is showing. It's showing the interconnectedness of everything. So everything comes from the land in the middle, the red, Apmere Allah, the country ground, and everything comes out from that. Erendarinya, the ancestor spirits, Erla Churcha, the people of the land, Tangata Whenua, Mergari, Kotongola. Kurelka, Inelka, all the meats, all the animals, the plants, all the spirits. And Barnarinja up the top. And Barnarinja is vital to understanding and knowing how one relates to his or her country. And Barnarinja, we'll get to that in a minute. Marala, everything come from the land. Marala Angel. So that's what that rich picture was showing. In some pockets of our contemporary existence, with the systematic despiritualisation of our people, we now fill the corridors of Western hospitals and have a life expectancy considerably lower to other Australians. Why, you might ask? Because these old knowings and truths are being diluted by the forces of modernity, and we aren't remembering and practicing like we should the old laws and truths of El Yerra. Not all of us, but many. In many parts of the Aboriginal world, we are no longer performing the ceremonies for our countries, and therefore not cleaning and charging our own spirits, which then takes its toll on our spirits, both individual and collective. We are succumbing to the pressures of the industrial world and find ourselves selling our lands to big ugly corporate giants to mine and desecrate our lands. In some places, my people are literally selling their souls, and our traditional lands are becoming our only means of making money. Sad, very sad. Our ancestors are becoming a commodity. You might be asking, why am I talking about this? And that it's probably best left for another time in a different forum. But the answer is simple. I work with a highly spiritual and important ethnographic collection of Arrernte knowledge and truth, which is almost entirely digitised. I work as the Artwe-kenhe collection research at the Strehlow Research Centre, which is part of the Museum and Art Gallery of the Northern Territory. Artwe-kenhe means belonging to men, or the knowledge of men in the Arrernte language. The name of the institution, the Strehlow Research Centre, doesn't convey its true origins, meaning, or significance. It appears as if one man in Professor Theodore Strehlow created it. But in fact, it's a highly unique record that documents the work and genius of a collective of approximately 20 to 30 senior Akngarabat, senior elders, who chose to reveal to him their most inner knowledge of traditional ceremonies, songs and stories relating to the Central Australian cultural landscape. Over a course of 4 decades, they amassed. It's not your biggest collection, but it's very unique in that all of the assets interlink, they're interconnected, and you can't have them sitting in silos. You can't isolate them from one another because it just doesn't make sense. The collection doesn't make sense. So we're effectively putting it back together again. Like Tahu explained, how her father was literally putting the whakapapa, the genealogy, back together. It's what we're trying to do with our elders. Same. So my role includes conducting Indigenous repatriation research within the collection, primarily the Artwe-kenhe ceremonial content, consolidating the collection, indigenising the collection or decolonising the collection by creating an Arrernte-friendly form of collection management by using our way of looking at the world. We digitise the collection and also produce our own digital archive through fieldwork and consultations for future generations to access and to learn from. We develop access protocols with senior custodians to ensure cultural integrity to the collection and cultural safety to custodians, but also to researchers who might access what they can. And I engage with my people on a daily basis, and they're the primary users of the collection. So this is sort of how we work with the collection. Like that, everything comes from the land map. Apmere, place or site, sacred site. So there's the film, the ceremonial acts relate to a certain Apmere in the landscape. the songs, the Lilanja, relate to a certain place in the landscape, and then they will relate to a particular part of the film. The family trees, the Artwe-kenhe, they relate to the film, the songs, and all the people that are in the ceremonies and who are singing the songs. And then we've got, I've got artifact there. Our word's just not really, it's a loaded word, it's a heavy word, the word we use there, so I won't use it in this context. But it's very similar to Taonga, very similar. I've been amazed by the similarities of the languages, really, blows me away a little bit. The photographs, so T.G.H. Strehlow photographed the people in ceremony and the field trips. And then you've got the field diaries that hold all the information, 44 volumes like this thick. They're our sort of primary source of research. So this is how we're trying to put everything back into where it belongs in the land, the Ngāninja, where that spirit emerged. Miki Gura, these are some of the men who co-created the collection. Miki Gura, 1935, very important man. He put the zap on Strehlow. Strehlow returns to Mparntwe, Alice Springs in 1931, 32 to do linguistic research. Miki Gura knows Strehlow. He knew he grew up at Ndaria, one of the communities west of Alice Springs. Strehlow was the son of a Lutheran missionary who set up a mission west of Mparntwe. So Miki Gura puts a zap on him and he says, "Hey, young fella, we know who you are. We know you can speak our language. We want you to work with us so that we can record our stories and our heritage." Because 1933, man, changing world for my people. Changing world. Keria, Strehlow, Warita, 1935. These two beautiful old men invite Strehlow to their country east of Alice Springs, Mparntwe, and they put on a three-month ceremonial camp. And they asked Strehlow, "Record it, Malay. Record it. We'll help you. We'll translate for you." This is where the ceremonial film catalogue starts, 1935. So we've got these men moving and dancing, you know. Beautiful to watch. When I first started working with the collection, I went straight to the film footage, you know, because it's just fascinating. But I'd literally sit there and cry at that screen, seeing all my old people dance and express. Yeah, emotional. Kol Barinya. He'd be about 70, 75 years old here. Look at him, he looked like a young man, you know. Spiritual, a non-colonised diet, singing, walking, naked, pure, on country. This is probably one of my favourite personalities in the story, Siri Ross Ilbrenya. He was like a ceremonial chief for the Mparntwe region, the Alice Springs area. And just a prolific contributor to the collection. He features on over 60 ceremonial performances as the primary actor. You know, you sort of get to know these old people, you know, when you're working really intimately with the collection. And you begin to develop favourites, and Siri's definitely one of mine. Beautiful old man. And we work with these men's descendants. You know, there's a continuum there that we like to make known to the world. We're still here. We ain't going anywhere. Anbanarinja, kon? Anbanarinj. Anbanarinj. Yo, mora. Due to the highly restricted nature of the collection, there doesn't exist a searchable database for public access. All repatriation research requests from Aboriginal custodians and researchers are conducted as face-to-face consultations. If researchers require access to restricted material, we suggest a preliminary consultation process with the custodians to assist in creating agency for them with their cultural heritage. It's not ours, it's theirs. Regarding custodian engagement with the collection, there are strict access conditions embedded in Arrernte traditional governance and Brinaringe. One must be able to demonstrate a direct lineage or connection with the material, either as an Apmere or a Kodangola. If not a senior authority, they must accompany or seek permission from their most senior family members to access this material. Reasserting traditional governance models where elders are decision makers and are fully involved with the activities of the centre is a driving influence behind our work. And in my 6 years of research at the SRC, the most obvious need and expectation to Indigenous custodians towards accessing this digital collection is for staff to possess a very intimate level of understanding of Arrernte culture and the concepts within it. Due to the intricate complexities and nuances of Arrernte culture, productively working with this content requires a diverse skill set. One must be able to competently speak, understand and read Arrernte in multiple various orthographies because much Australia's record is written in this language. So the best thing that we have done, or the museum has done, is employ Arrernte people, Aboriginal people. We hit the ground running, as they say. We understand the nuances and the complex concepts within the collection. We have direct access to senior authorities to call upon for guidance and direction. And we have learnt from our fathers and grandfathers the correct ways to interact with and manage sensitive ceremonial material. So when dealing with a predominantly ceremonial collection, it makes logical and cultural sense to employ Indigenous ceremony men. But I must note that I'm only the second Indigenous man to ever work here at the centre in its 27 years, which tells you something. The first was Mark Inkamala, a Western Arrernte man, senior man, who worked at the centre about 7 years ago. So for the first 20 years, Indigenous people were effectively left out of the collection in favour of non-Indigenous academics and researchers who, to put it bluntly, made an absolute mess of our collection, of our culture. Basically not understanding the connectedness, the law of our ancestors who connected the different tribes. The powers that be at the time thought that we as Aboriginal men were incapable of working with and governing our own cultural heritage. So we are now doing amazing things with it. We're putting it back together with these old chaps. Two senior Eastern Arrernte men, Uncle John Kavanagh, Kamara, Alan Yellowshirt Drover, Parula. Again, like what Tahu was saying, nobody can do the work that they do because they just have this level of knowledge that you can't learn at a university, you can't learn through TAFE courses. You need to learn from the land and the elders. We could do better in this area, I must admit, the museum. We're working on it, it's slow, but look man, I'd love to see like 20 of us working in there. I'd love to see Unmajara people working with Unmajara material, Arrernte with Arrernte, Luricha with Luricha material, Pitnjara working with Pitnjara, Alyaura with Alyaura, Pudama with Pudam, Lagan. And so working with these old people is absolute key to producing productive outcomes for both the institution, but more importantly, us. It is a living, breathing collection and is very much a resource centre as well as a research centre. The engagement of Indigenous cultural authorities is a no-brainer. It's imperative to the health of the collection. But there is much urgency to this as we are now losing important elders every year who possess great libraries of knowledge. the health of a collection. How can that piece of paper be healthy or unhealthy? Easy. You get the people who know what it's saying working with it. Dick Ericha, Dick Eaglehawk, Dick Eagle, Wedge-tailed Eagle. This is John's father. You look, same face too. You can see family, yeah? That's his father, or his father's older brother in 1935. Both John and Alan's fathers worked with Strehlow. John's in 1935 and Alan's in 1958. We've got him on film, and what a beautiful moment it was to show him footage of his father after, 30 or 40 years of being in spirit, Really emotional work when we work with our culture. Okay, so these are some of our projects. Cultural mapping, field diaries, digitisation, the film and sound catalogue, community engagement, collaborative work with museums around repatriation and research, and field work. Cultural mapping, Terra Nullius, Captain James Cook. They come to our country and they said, Terra Nullius, uninhabited land. Maybe not. Be a bit cheeky, but that's all right. All these yellow pins represent sacred sites, Nganinja sites. And that's just like a really small cross-section of the Central Australian landscape, that. From the bottom to the top is probably 100-kilometre distance, and same going that way. And our country is filled with meaning. Very different. Yeah, different world, different planet, almost. Cultural mapping. So when Strehlow was going on field trips, he'd draw these sketch maps of country, with sort of documenting the significance and the sites and the stories. So this is Mark Inkamala with copies trying to relocate some sites that have been missing, that have gone missing, due to a sort of lack of walking country. We've got cars now, we drive around, but car can't get everywhere. You need to go on foot to get to the places inside. So we do a lot of cultural mapping. Yeah, all right. And so we've got all these symbols that we've got sort of created to give these yellow pins more of a meaning, because each one of these is associated with a different totemic ancestor. So you've got kangaroo, emu, all the birds, different birds, and Kwatye, rain, water dreaming, water. So we want to hopefully, we're working slowly sort of repopulating our Google Earth imagery platform to have more meaning inside it. Yeah, all right, so this is sort of how it can work. That distance is probably 200 to 300 kilometres, and these are specific sites along the Andapa. Andapa is our ceremonial dancing women, who were spirit women. They were Nganinja women who come into existence, and they danced right through the country, right through, singing and dancing. So this sort of tracks an Andapa songline through the landscape. This is an old photo of Andapa women. Beautiful. We still do this ceremony today. 2018 hasn't stopped. Our old men will sing when the sun goes down, and they won't stop singing until it comes back up. And our Andapa women will dance that whole ceremony. This is our songs, Andapa. You can hear them. That's our Andapa women. Right? These are my grandfathers. I recorded this 2 years ago when my son was initiated. He's a young man now. Sisters of the young man going into ceremony, dance all night. My sister was there dancing for her son, my son, for 8 hours straight. She was sore after, sore leg. No help. Just a bit of sound from Apmere. Field diaries, yeah. I love this process, so I literally sat with Uncle John and read word for word a full field diary, 190, 200 pages, word for word, went through it, done a first stage edit. These are annotations, so these are his words, this is his enrichment of the record, of the documentation, and only he could do that. Nobody else, only him, because this map here is of his country. So it's really localised knowledge. Nobody else in the world. And so he's actually giving more meaning to a document that's been sitting there for like 60 years, you know? Never been worked with. So to me, before these annotations were on this page was sick. As soon as we started writing and enriching it, it come alive, it become more healthy, the health of the collection. Digitisation, yep, we all know what that is. Gets a bit tedious and boring sometimes, but it's got its place. Film and sound catalogue, yeah. That 800 should be 900 ceremonial acts, a really important collection, eh? Mostly restricted men's ceremony, which we can't really talk about or show. Who knows, maybe 100 years down the track, we don't know. Maybe our descendants will open it up for the world, but not at the moment because it's still alive and we still do it. Community engagement, love this side, bringing young people into the museum. Museums are really important to Aboriginal people, well, all of Indigenous people, because they hold our ancestors, they hold our ancestral knowledges. So we really regard museums as up there, you know, in professions and institutions to work, because we need to be working closely with it. We can't give that responsibility to other people. I mean, it's our responsibility, so we need to be getting our young people in and really sort of blooding them, you know, encouraging them to enter this sort of workspace, this world. Collaboration, these are some sacred artefacts that come back from Museum Victoria last August. They've been away from country for over 100 years. Smoke, cleansing. This is some footage of an old man. This is some of the footage from the collection. Secular open footage. This is Tom Yonga, important man in the story. He was many things, an interpreter for Strehlow on their field work, a middleman, a broker between tribes who had never seen a white man in their life. He was a ceremony man. He pointed out sacred sites to Strehlow to record. He was a bloody hard worker, loading them big camel things up, chopping wood, making fire for Strehlow in the morning. That's Strehlow, Tom Yonga. We work with Tom's descendants, so we're actually in the process of identifying and looking for them. But all these men have descendants, you know. It's a special thing, you know, about us. About all of us, Indigenous. All of us, all of us. So how are custodians, you know, utilising the collection? Well, in a number of different ways. We get people come in and view the film, listen to their songs, go through the maps, and we do field work. But this is Mark Inkamala explaining whakapapa, genealogies to these young men, young Arrernte men, Western Arrernte men. Yeah, and like, I mean, you see some of those family trees, the Mparntwe, they just roll out, eh? Big families. They keep rolling and rolling and rolling. Some are only small, but some are 50 metres long. I love this kind of work. You know, like these young men were related and they didn't, you know, they didn't sort of know how. They knew they were family. They didn't know how. So Mark is explaining how. Fieldwork. Elders sometimes utilise the collection to acquire knowledge themselves that may not have been passed down by their fathers for a whole variety of historical factors. But we also utilise the collection during fieldwork, literally taking digital copies of films, songs, photographs and maps out into the field. And for me, this is the most powerful use of the digital archive and where the real magic happens. Taking these digital assets out on our country, where deep transference of knowledge occurs, is kind of like breathing life. It's breathing life into a USB that would usually be confined to the four walls of our institutions. So we take this out and we play songs out on country and we search for sites out on country. We're breathing life into whatever this little thing is here. And in addition, we are creating a companion digital archive which continues on from Strehlow's work by recording elders on country and documenting this transmission of knowledge to the next generation. These men are pointing to their great-grandfathers, Aknganinja site, that hill, that Aputta, sacred place. This is what our field work looks like.
Yeah.
See that photo we seen earlier with the two old men? That's their great-grandfather, Alwarita.
They had no tools, like hammer or chisel or anything. They had only this sort of rock. And they're rocking and the sharp rock and the tools are carved like all this carved like put Lord. So something in the ground would have been sharp on mouth. I read chisel at it. I read that. Mark a minute. Thousands of years ago. I can't help me, I need a good reading class. Can come up on the meeting, just pick one, I can learn this one here. Can in a book of more book, Sunday. What are you in a tema? Carpet negative again, but quiet one, but more than do. Yeah. Not terribly. Sunday country.
Yeah, that's Uncle John.
And then I'm training workshop on school and I'm early days map on school, this one. So I'm teaching me.
A professor of knowledge. A Laura and Mind recording project. This is my grandfather's, working with my grandfathers on this one, who featured in that song early part. My old grandfather. They're pointing to a hill in the background where they're singing the song. They're singing about a mother who had a young baby child in the Aljara, and that mother went off to look for bush tucker and left that child in a coolaman in a carrying. And that baby started crying. Well, then that mother come back and returned and looked after. Beautiful songs. Get that powder, chuck it out. When the next rain comes, Eriakura will grow. Little bush onions, Eriakura, Yalka.
Tell you what.
1 second.
Red ochre, yeah. See that red part, see that red ochre.
Ulba.
Yeah.
Sacred to
Red ochre.
all indigenous
Why
people
have you used red
all
ochre?
over the world. Ulba. And this next one is of my grandfather again, and he's explaining how to make Kwatye rain.
Nana,
One way.
what a German can call Adamat Pigman Lakanaka. Kwatye-kenhe like by
Up.
Kwatye-kenhe Pigman Kwatye the Nika. Lakanaka. Lakanana, Nurture. Lakaneko. Kwatye-kenhe.
Yeah. Right. How much longer is this? 5, 10, 5? Colour. I'll just read. We're all aware of the positives of digitisation, but there are some serious potential risks that warrant caution. Human error. Losing a USB containing restricted ceremonial content could have devastating implications. If we are to continue to repatriate digital assets, potentially we could end up with a situation where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of USBs circulating within the community with restricted sacred content. Human error is sure to prevail once. Once is too many when dealing with sacred material. So how do we manage this? Yeah, well, we don't really know at the moment. We're just sort of working on these issues, you know. But I take a lot out of what Tahu spoke about with, the things that you're sort of working on, really cutting edge stuff. I'd really like to sort of learn a little bit more about what you're doing. Also, if not utilised or managed properly, this USB, computer, hard drive, has the potential to eliminate the role of elders where knowledge is kept in their minds and only released to certain men who they deem responsible. If this technology takes over as the source of knowledge and we create a reliance on the digital domain, it has the potential to make our elders' teaching roles redundant. What a sad case that would be. A korknga, we call it, brain, a korknga. We know that our traditional objects, If relied upon as the source of knowledge, it will take away the humanness and the nuances of physicality and the intergenerational dependency between elders and the younger generation. There is an emotion factor that is important in sitting with an elder. You cannot physically feel or touch the contents of a digital file. When learning in the traditional way, there is a real magic in being present. Yeah. We know that our traditional objects have agency or possess life force, and we have protocol and management around these things. But how do we treat and manage modern objects holding digital power? One could argue that a USB is not a powerful object or possess agency, but if its content is ceremonial song or footage, well, by default it becomes a sacred artefact, and we must develop protocol or modern law governance for such objects. Otherwise, we run the risk of jeopardising the integrity of our law and culture. We don't have a word for the digital or digitisation in my language. We don't have a word for hard drive, computer or USB. We don't understand how these things work, the mechanisms, the mechanics of them. Do they have agency? Do they have spirit? Do they have power? Is it a sacred object if it holds sacred content? What happens when we plug a USB into a computer? What the bloody hell is cloud storage? Try explaining that to old people, you know? Hard, man. No, true though. What is a server? What are algorithms, man? A korknga tigabak. Is this like a brain? A korknga tigabak. Ndagan nilama. How does it work? Utnanga. Does it have a spirit? Dangerous. Sacred. What's inside? Confusion. Algorithm. No other word, no context. I sometimes think to myself that if our ngarapat, our ancestors who originally revealed their sacred knowledge, knew the dangers and unknowns around the digital world, would they have parted with their sacred information? I don't know. These are serious issues and questions that Indigenous people will be forced to deal with as time progresses, as digital technology is definitely here to stay. It is up to our ngarapat, our ceremonial leaders, to control how much of an influence digital technology will have within our culture. We're amongst some of the world's most studied and researched tribes on the face of the earth, with ethnographers, anthropologists, missionaries, and early explorers recording and documenting different aspects of our worldview throughout the course of the last 140 years. We have our ancestors and digitised cultural heritage sitting in collections all over the world. France, England, Finland, Sweden, America, Germany, Netherlands. And these are only some of the places that we know about. We estimate through our research that there are around 5,000 to 6,000 sacred artefacts that lie within the major museums within Australia alone. And this is not taking into account international institutions. The number would be up around the 12,000 mark. As you can see, our lands were looted, absolutely looted, of our ancient treasures. And it had such a profound impact on our men and our women. But our men cared for the Artwe-kenhe ceremonial artefacts. And you can see the effects of it today. If any of you have been to Alice Springs and Mparntwe, you can see. This is why we regard the work that takes place within museums and other collecting institutions as a critical component to moving towards future. So we are encouraging our young people to enter into these worlds. We regard museums as some of the most important places to work because of the main reason they hold our ancestors and ancestral knowledge. Aboriginal people are the heart of our country. Our songlines are like the arteries that carry the life force, the blood, to every corner of our continent, linking countrymen, stories, ceremonies and spirit. We must sing and dance with all our power and vigour to resync ourselves with the true heartbeat of our lands. In some cases, Our ethnographic collections hold a certain key to realising this, because so much of our culture has been affected, and these collections record some important intricate details, which in some pockets have been forgotten. But we should also integrate in small amounts, I think, the technologies that are at hand, because of the simple fact that contemporary institutions are repositories of our cultural heritage, and they are embedded in the modern flows of human evolution and technological evolution. But this is certainly arguable too. To conclude, our ancestors are in these collections, and they're also within us. Their knowledge and spirits are in these collections. So we as their descendants must do all we can to honour our old people by being in positions of influence within institutions to change the way that we interact and work with our ancestral material, which is almost entirely digitised. I had a really, really beautiful afternoon. We had the opportunity to visit the Te Papa storage up the road here, and I was able to talk to some of our ancestors that are here, and yeah, it's the first time that they've probably heard their language and felt one of their descendants in many, many years. So it was a really lovely experience, and thank you everybody who's made this beautiful experience possible. Kala, urugari dinam.
Mai tēnei tamahine o te kohu, kia koe te matane o te ua. Nei rā te mihi kia koe. I was just thanking Shaun, as a child of the rain, from me, a child of the mist. When we met each other yesterday, our immediate thing went to sharing languages. Mm-hmm. We shared our names for taonga, for these artefacts that are so bound up within these institutions. And watching your videos, another word came to mind from my people of Tūhoe, te mate mate aone, which is our love for the land and how much we would die for it. Mm. Your talk really, really resonated with me, and so I just want to thank you for that, but also remind everyone that we've been talking about including communities and helping or getting them to help inform how we lead our institutions or our projects. But remember, we are in these institutions. Your communities exist and have agency within these institutions, and we can lead projects as well. And this was a huge reminder of the power of that. So again, just join me in thanking Shaun.